everyone. Welcome to the Energy Storage Market Series. My name is Erez Dolev, and I'm the Managing Director here at RENVU. Today, we're going to be hearing from Corbin Abshir, Director of Business Development at PowerField, about PowerRack Ballast ground mount solution. Before we dive in, and while we're waiting for more people to join, I'd like to give a little background on RENVU, as well as some of the products and services we offer. RENVU is a US-based solar equipment distributor. We have been in industry for over a decade, and we currently have fulfillment facilities in California, New Jersey, and Texas. Our sales staff all have background within engineering or solar installation to provide you with the best sales and services. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Corbin.
Thank you so much, Erez. I appreciate it. I like you showing the design tool purchasing option for the customers. That's a very powerful tool. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time to join us here today. And thank you, RENVU, for the opportunity to present alongside you. We are very grateful for our relationship with RENVU and have a very, very bright future ahead of yourselves for your customer base. You are doing the right thing out there. So thank you again to everyone who's here joining us. If you have used the PowerRack in the past, I greatly appreciate you. We greatly appreciate you using our product and continuing to use it in your ongoing projects. As he mentioned before, my name is Corbin Abshir. I'm our Director of Business Development. And joining me also is Patrick Fleming. He's our Chief Operating Officer. He'll be with us on the Q&A afterwards. So please, I encourage you throughout this presentation, please type in your questions in the Q&A section there, and we'll get to them at the end. We can go back through our slides and review any pointed topics that you guys may want to go over there. Yeah, so we are PowerField Energy. We make a product that ultimately is the simplest racking solution for solar in the world. A simple, scalable, sustainable product, and we're excited to present it to you guys today. PowerField, we know that companies and people have had pains and issues with their solar racking in the past, no matter if that's using a typical steel pole-mounted system or you're using another component that you're building on your own on a smaller system. There's all kinds of issues that go with these, especially if you're stuck with those. You have a lot of engineering, nuts and bolts. It can become a lot of headaches and a lot of gruesome time and costs that come up with it that you just don't want to get. At the end of the day, you were trying to install solar and save money by doing that. And that's where we want to present our product that is ultimately going to be that cost-saving solution for you. The PowerRack is a no ground penetration product. It's a ballasted racking solution. You fill it with a natural material. You're not using any concrete or intrusive products. You have a very fast installation. It is a rackless product. You don't have any other mounting hardware components that are required to fully install your modules on the PowerRack, which ultimately is going to lower your installation costs, your installation time, and going to save you money on your projects. And we know that racking is becoming a very expensive piece of the project. And we know at PowerRack that ultimately we want to save you cost where that time and headache is spent most often. The PowerRack is unbelievably simple. There are really only 4 steps to get your PowerRack system installed. You're going to set your PowerRacks out, lay them into the system of where they're going to go, fill them with your ballast material. There's a variety of materials that can be. Attach your solar modules onto the PowerRack, put on your mounting retainers, and deploy the system. Can't be easier than that. We're going to see a demonstration of a PowerRack install with a single module. You can see it's easy to be done by even just one person. As we mentioned, you have to set your PowerRacks out. There's 3 feet of row spacing typically in systems. We will provide ballasting analysis for you to know how high you need to fill up your PowerRacks with material. Depending on the module size, we may have adapters that come with that simply clip on to the high side to make that fit them. Hold the module, slide it into place. The frame will be held up on the high side, all using gravity. And then you put your mounting retainers onto the bottom side, and then simply put the retaining tab into the mounting retainer. It can't be easier than that. You're not having any headaches with that. No painful engineering, no painful process of labor. From a small project up to a large commercial one, the PowerRack is here to present you with an option. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different solar markets out there, and PowerRack is fit to be a solution for all of them, from your residential projects and agricultural settings, portable power, large utility scale, down to commercial, and even on the sensitive soil sites to where you can't do any ground penetration. It's a perfect option. PowerRack is made all throughout, or is made in the US. And so we fit within your 10% tax credit that you will get for domestic tax credits. Obviously, everyone knows that this is a perfect time to be going solar with the incentives that are available for everyone. And PowerRack is just adding on top of that to make your savings a little bit more that you can get. Always recommend to speak with your tax professional to get final advice on that. The PowerRack is, to even go further than that, of your tax savings, the PowerRack is a fully economical, sustainable product. From production to the installation, there's not going to be a more sustainable product on the market. It's amazing the simplicity and the savings that come with the PowerRack solution. And the simplicity of it really goes into the application of the PowerRack itself. Where the PowerRack can be installed is truly limitless. As long as you have the space to do a ground-mounted system. A lot of customers, as Erez mentioned, on a residential system, you may not have the rooftop space to be doing that, but you have the ground space, and you can add on. And PowerRack is a simple solution to where you can make a residential solar system be easily installed there. This is the same project as the one previously, simply showing that you don't really have to change the demographic and the look of your land to get a solar system installed, a ground-mounted install. You still get to save the aesthetics of it. The low profile of the PowerRack itself will not take away any of your beauty, even up to a 16 kilowatt system. You're simply just adding it into part of your landscape there. As I mentioned, on a residential system, even in kind of an outside rural project, you may not have the roof space to do it. By simply putting it on the grass right there, you can just add a PowerRack system and get your solar going super simple and very fast. On the opposite side, PowerRack has been used in larger projects and on very interesting labor opportunities, to where not only your amazing labor crews that you have on your team will get projects done very, very fast and saving your labor costs at the end of the day. But you have the opportunity to get communities involved with projects, or your company involved with projects themselves. The simplicity of the PowerRack opens up for community volunteers to get in place for community solar projects, to where they can have a little bit more tie and feel connected to what they are doing, rather than just seeing the project get done and being able to purchase that power from it. They know that they had their hands in something that is really making a positive impact on their community. And even here in Pennsylvania, we were able to use some local labor crews that got this 2 megawatt project installed in just 4 weeks. So really, anywhere from your big projects down to a portable PowerRack solution, we're here to make a difference. Everyone is aware of the catastrophic fires that happened in Maui. We had the opportunity to get our PowerRacks delivered out there to provide some portable solutions while they're going through this. And even on the other side here in the US of events, or you're traveling and want to have your power there that's not going to be a diesel generator or something that is negatively impacting your carbon footprint. There's opportunities for the PowerRack to bring that as a solution that just were not possible before. So pretty remarkable of the impact that PowerRack is seeing not only on homeowners, but companies themselves being able to expand in different ways that the solar market and the music industry, for instance, with that one, has never seen before. Yeah, that is wrapping up. The PowerField PowerRack is the simplest, scalable, most sustainable ground-mounted racking solution in the world. And we are happy to be here talking with you all today. So that is it. It's a simple process, simple talking points. So we will open up our Q&A and go through some of those questions. So if you have any more, please feel free to share them. So the first question I see is, can the PowerRack be used for roof mounts? Good question. We get asked this a lot, and currently not particularly, I would say. The PowerRack requires anywhere from around 250 pounds up to 500 pounds of ballasting material per PowerRack, and that's usually going to be 2 of them per module. So most of the roofs, that's going to be way too much weight for them. We've had some very odd specific cases to where that would be a different scenario, but for the most part I would look at it as being no. But hopefully we will have a roof mounted project in the future. All right. Another question is, any type of aggregates or soil required to ballast? So no, not any requirements. The only requirement is the weight. And so we will help customers put together a ballasting diagram. We will soon have an online tool that will do that. You will be able to go on and do your systems and get your own ballasting diagrams from that. But essentially, we just need you to get to a certain weight. We can help you with answer a question of that ballasting material, to know what you're using and what indicator lines you may need to get to meet that need. But any type of topsoil, gravel, pea gravel, crushed rock, sand, anything that's small, dense, and heavy. You don't want to use bigger materials that are bulky. Makes that not as even there. Great question. All right. Scott said, I installed 7.8 kilowatt system. Stand behind the product. Not a question, but I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. All right. Another question is, what solar module size is best for the PowerRack? It's a great question, and because we don't fit with every module right now, we do have a size limitation that is based off of the width of the module. And so this is the outside frame to outside frame edges, which is 1,050 millimeters on the max, or 960 millimeters on the minimum. And in inches, that's 41.3 on the high side and 37.8 on the low side. But besides that, as long as it is a framed module, that's a traditional frame with the flange that goes back in, because that is what we use for the mounting process, it'll work with it. We can't use a frameless module.
Corbin, just interrupt here for a minute just to put on record that we are currently designing a larger version of the rack. So we're targeting middle of next year, 2024, when we'll have a version in the market that can handle some of the larger modules coming out now.
Yeah, that's exciting. So we get a lot of inquiries that are larger modules, and we want to be able to accommodate everyone. So hold tight. We'll get it there for you. Awesome. Next question is from Scott says, any concerns with high wind, flood zone, snow, other weather conditions that could come through and displace these containers? That's a fantastic question. And I mentioned, there are some restrictions on that. One, I would say the number one you put in there for wind, we can get up to 120-mile-an-hour winds with no ground penetration. On the bottom side of the PowerRack itself, there are 3 drain holes, and one of them is intended for the use of a ground anchor. If you wanted to do that to try to get to a higher wind, we have not done studies ourselves with that to be able to back it up of what that's going to do, but that option is available. And then on the flood zone, obviously these are very low to the surface, the low side being 8 inches from the ground. So I would keep that in mind when working in a flood zone. Obviously, we would love to sell you a product, but always want to be keeping it in condition of where you're doing that. Snow is a very common concern with being so low to the ground. And truthfully, we've seen a very big surprise in how popular we have been in the snowy areas. Given the cost savings that people see in the installation, using the PowerRack a lot of times has been offsetting to the production loss during those snow-covered times. But at the end of the day, no matter what solar module or racking system you're using, when the snow comes, they will be covered in snow. But obviously ours is lower to the ground. A little bit more accumulation could happen, but the cost savings in the beginning will help with that. Other weather conditions. Another thing to keep in mind is the slope, because we are non-penetrating to the surface. Our slope tolerance is 10 degrees, and that's kind of at a per module basis, because most of the time every solar module will be mounted independently, as they have 2 power racks underneath one module. We will not be required, not required of every module to be in the same plane there. Another question is, any regional restrictions, heat, freezing, or snow? Patrick, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. Yeah. Similar answer to what you gave before. We have, there's no region, certainly not here in the US, and we don't predict anywhere in the world, where power racks would not work. They are designed to withstand extreme weather conditions. So it's made with a high density polyethylene material that has very high, very wide temperature tolerances. So no worries there. And snow, Corbin already talked about snow. So your modules may accumulate snow and get buried, but we don't typically see a lot of solar production during the winter months anyway. So the production loss, that you may experience would be relatively low when you look across the calendar year. But certainly there will be accumulation. Most of our residential customers simply go out and brush or blow the snow. Another advantage of them being low profile is they're accessible, as opposed to modules on your roof that you can't reach. These, you can simply go out there with a broom or a snow blower and keep them clear all year round.
Fantastic. Awesome. Let's see here. I'm going to go into...
So this is about minimum order quantities. We do not currently have any minimum order quantities, so that should not be a concern.
Answer on that. Another question is, are there any permitting considerations specific to these racks to be careful of? Patrick, do you have a best answer on that? I would say no. Obviously, we will want to make sure that we do the structural analysis of it to make sure that we are meeting the jurisdiction's wind speed requirements. But for now, we're knock on wood, we're at 100% approval rating with 38 states. So we haven't had any issues with that thus far. All right. And the question is, what is the lead time to receive the PowerRack if I order tomorrow? I hear supply chain for solar racking can be an issue right now. That's definitely true. Yeah. We hear this a lot from customers who end up finding us because of these delays. And so, as Patrick mentioned, we're a high density polyethylene product that's made through injection molding here in the US, in Minnesota. And so that process is a fairly fast process to get that done. We currently have plenty of inventory of it already, and have an easy method to get more of that produced for larger orders. But typically we have a delivery time of anywhere from around 2 to 3 weeks for projects. Okay. Another question from Alan is, what is the minimum weight to put into the PowerRack? And so I would say the minimum weight would be, hopefully we get you a ballasting diagram to tell you that. But you'll want to go to the bottom line on the PowerRack as the bare minimum of what one would be going to, and that's typically right at about 200 pounds, 250 pounds, depending upon the material. But yes, my recommendation is to get your ballasting diagram to tell you what your minimum of a system may be. Okay. Made of, I answered the high density polyethylene. Next question is, what height is the module from the ground? And is this a height mowers could go onto? Yeah, so 8 inches is what that is. And it typically, Patrick, I don't know if you have a clarification on, getting a mower underneath that.
Yeah, so the front leading edge of the module is going to be 8 inches off the ground. It's going to be 2 feet or a little more than 2 feet on the high side. And certainly rocks could easily be thrown that high. I probably would not recommend using a mower if you have too many rocks on your site. And some mower decks are, too high for that. A lot of mower decks are maybe taller than 8 inches. You might not be able to get under that leading edge unless you have a really low profile mower, but you can certainly get close to it. But yeah, I mean, we can't deny that rocks could potentially spit up onto those modules.
Yeah, always nervous to do that. If you have a mulching setting, you can drop it down, but keeping it clean and not trying to cause damage to them, always want to recommend that. Another question from Alan says, do we need anything to nail down to the ground? No. So all of our requirements that we produce for ballasting to meet that wind speed is without any ground penetration. So no ground penetration required. All right. Question is, any recommended seasonal maintenance? And what about frost heave? Patrick, I'll let you take that one.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we've talked about snow accumulation and vegetation and mowing. Frost heave, that there's no way for us to be able to say what your ground is going to do under frost heave. If there's a significant amount of movement, then certainly there's a risk of lifting, pushing or shifting these racks. So, that would be something to think about. If you have a lot of frost heave, you might want to just check, throughout a season, what that's doing to something else that you have sitting on the ground, some other, bucket or block or piece of equipment of similar weight. If that's shifting, then your ballasted solar racks are going to shift as well. One advantage of the 2 rack per module layout, as Corbin mentioned earlier, the modules end up being independently mounted and therefore not rigidly affixed to each other. They're going to be connected, of course, with your cabling and your grounding bonding solution. But if there's a little bit of shifting, lifting, etc., module to module, as long as that's not too significant, if that's just an inch or less, or maybe a couple inches at the max, then your rows might shift out of alignment with each other, but there's no real harm in that if one module ends up being half an inch or an inch shifted away from its neighbor. No real risk there.
Yeah, great question. Next question says, can some 12-volt heat be added in the winter? I'm not sure what that means. Do you know what that means, Patrick? If not,
no, I suppose that maybe somebody asking whether they could try to add a little heat to their module frames or modules to facilitate melting. And I suppose that's possible. I don't have any experience with doing so.
Yeah, I would refer to the module manufacturer on that one. All right. Let's see. Are these better for string inverters, optimizers, or microinverters? Thinking of partial shading from grass, snow, and sun angles. That is a fantastic question.
Yeah, all of the above. No restrictions there. You can use all the same string options and inverter options that you would with any racking system. If you're using optimizers or microinverters, we just recommend that you use the module frame brackets that come with those and mount those up in the module frames themselves. We do not recommend drilling or bolting those components directly to the rack. You could do that. It's a very robust HDPE, but once you penetrate the rack in that way, you would void the warranty, and there's always a chance that some number of years from now, those bolt holes or screw holes create some stress fractures. So we would not recommend that you. You're drawing some lines there, Corbin.
Yeah, I was just saying. Once you were finished, I was gonna say that
Go
this
right
is where
ahead.
the wire management system kind of built into here, and so your wires, your home run wires for string inverters and your module wires can simply lay into that. So I want to make sure that that was pointed out.
Yeah, and then where I thought you were going, this is another option. We have had some DIY customers build some sort of hanging frames. So if you took, some strut or some brackets and mounted your module level power components to those, and then just sort of draped those hangers over the sidewall there, that would be a much better option than trying to bolt or screw them directly to the rack. But really the module frame brackets are the best option for those. But string inverters, plenty of our customers use string inverters as well, and just mount those separately on a rack or on a post near the array.
The links will be included in the follow-up email. So we'll send an email probably tomorrow or the day after with the recording and some links that we were sharing.
A fire hazard due to grass, if there's a risk of your field burning, then certainly your solar array would be at risk as well if it's sitting on grass. We have had plenty of customers lay down a gravel bed or a barrier to prevent vegetation growth altogether. So that's always an option. I don't believe there's any additional risk of fire from the solar apparatus, if that's what you're asking. There should not be a great deal of heat. There's always a risk of sparking or shorting anytime you have an electrical apparatus. So certainly can't deny that risk, but we have not seen a grass fire problem in any of the projects that we've been involved in or are aware of.
Yeah, good question. Let's see. Question about how many cities. I don't know the total number of cities.
No, that's a good question. I don't even know that we could know that. We do know that we have product that we have sold in 38 states and counting, and I don't know how many different jurisdictions in each of those states, but as Corbin indicated earlier, we're batting 1,000. So we have not been rejected by any AHJ for permitting yet. Occasionally there's some back and forth, some AHJs or officials have never seen this product before, and so maybe they have questions, and we stand by to answer any of those questions and have answered them successfully in every case so far. So again, have not been rejected once yet.
Awesome. So the question next is about pouring water into the power rack instead of using a material. And so the answer without doing anything to the power rack itself is no, because it will just go out as there's drain holes in it. But you can always be innovative in the way that material gets into there. But another issue with the water is that eventually is going to evaporate. I'm sure everyone has played on a basketball goal that is held down by water, and that eventually will fall over when that water evaporates out of there. Same thing's going to happen here. So that's why we want to make sure that we're using a material, and hopefully it's a dry material, so you're not messing with a muddy, wet material getting that into there. But yeah, we don't want we don't want to use water. Some of the photos show a bed of gravel underneath the arrays, but can the rack be installed on rougher terrain or without any site prep at all? I'm going to switch to a different slide here and show you. So this site here is right on the ground. They don't have any material under them. There's some for a little bit of, fixing of the module, the racks, if there was a hole in the ground or something along that line, so they can run the rows all the way across. But no, you do not have to do any site preparation beforehand. As we've mentioned, when the modules are mounted independently, it's going to roll with these undulations and changes in the surface. So you don't have to do a bunch of site prep beforehand, and that time and expense of being out on the site can be cut down there, so you don't have to do that. Obviously, it's going to reflect what the surface looks like, so that's why you do see a lot of our customers put gravel underneath that to make it a little more level at the end of the day, or for a less hands-on vegetation control, or even in other situations where we've had the gravel be installed as a requirement for a electrical insulator for where that project was being installed. So good question on that one. Next question, is there a need for small systems to get a permit? And so my answer is depending upon your jurisdiction and if you're going to be off grid on what you need to do with that. I believe, and I'm not the best expert on this answer, but I believe if you're tying into an existing system, you have to have a permit for that.
Yeah, typically, it's hard to say universally, but typically off-grid systems, especially in rural areas, do not need a permit. But that's kind of on you to talk to your officials and understand what's required in the area where you live.
Yeah. Fantastic question on that. Awesome.
One question from me, is there any cable management solution? How do you handle cable management?
Yeah, so this is essentially our cable management here. The trough that's on the side walls of the power rack is made to not have to have any outside clips or components of that. And then we've also seen people use the wire pop-in clips that'll go into the module frames to run the wires along the backside of the power racks themselves. And then going from like row to row for wire management, and because it is all above ground, if you are staying all above ground, we've seen a variety of people use the wire hangers to make that very simple, or just using a conduit that is attached to metal or wood going up the rows for that. But the troughs there are our wire management there.
And another question for me, is there an option to reduce the minimum amount of weight by anchoring them using some kind of anchors to reduce the weight?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a way to reduce the wind speed that we know and we've done our testing with is by the use of a windbreak into the system. Not necessarily because we cannot provide the data ourselves on the ground anchors, because there's a variety of what those may be. But we know at a 50% wind blockage for a windbreak that we're able to reduce some of that wind requirement, weight requirement for systems, which is nice because, I'm sure you're thinking of a windbreak as being a big, ugly fence with that, which is not the case with the power rack because of its low profile. Simply having a berm that is almost a little bit higher than the power rack itself and the modules is an easy solution to that. So it doesn't have to be something that is kind of blocking people's view or not looking great.
Yeah, to add a little more color to the idea of using a ground anchor, as Corbin said, there is a hole in the bottom of the rack that you could use to drive a ground anchor through, and undoubtedly that adds quite a bit of strength. We can't certify that application merely because of the infinite variety of earth material and soil types and conditions and which anchors are being used. That's just an infinite combination that is difficult for us to be able to certify. So, but it certainly can be tested at your unique site conditions. So there are ways to do pull tests and figure out how much strength a particular ground anchor would use in your particular soil, and then use that to offset or augment ballast weight. So it is a possibility. It's just, as Corbin said, not something we can provide the data for every possible combination. So if you have further questions about that, feel free to reach out and we can handle those offline. A question just came in here about junction boxes. And so that's similar to the question about module level power components. You would mount junction boxes and conduit and things like that separately on stanchions or on posts or buried. We would simply ask that you not drill those directly into the sidewalls of the rack.
That's good.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, looks like it. That's it. That's all the questions. Thank you guys so much. This has been an amazing opportunity for us.
Yeah, please reach out directly if you have questions for us. You're welcome to be in touch with us directly, or reach out to RENVU, and they can relay any questions to us. We have our data sheets and installation manuals, and all those documents are available on RENVU's webpage. But please, we love hearing from you even after the fact. So be in touch with any other questions or needs, and hopefully we'll be racking your next solar project.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Corbin, for sharing your knowledge here. As I mentioned before, this webinar is being recorded, and we will send you a link in a follow-up email with some offerings that go with PowerRack. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.